ahead and do that right now.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, 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 oh. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavai Tejasvina Vaditamastu Ma Vidvishavai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om. May the divine being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the divine being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto thee, unto us, and to all your beloved children everywhere. Hari Om Tat Sat. Dearly beloved, make it so. So namaste, everyone, and welcome to this morning's discussion of the material that Clarice has brought to us. As was mentioned on your chat screen, you will find a link to a 15-page document, which you are requested to find and open, because as Clarice has said, she will refer to it often. With that, I will turn the meeting over to Clarice with our gratitude and our great willingness to learn from what she has to say.
Thank you, Brother Shankara. I really appreciate that and would like to say I so enjoyed the sound of your voice for the prayer. Thank you very much. I found it very calming. And let's see, Elizabeth, would you be willing to share the screen?
Yes.
And we'll try that. I would be curious to know if the print you see on the screen is too small, and if not, then we'll use the version you have on your screen.
So what do you want me to share?
I think if you just click on share screen and enable me, a participant, to share it. If you click on share screen, it might say allow.
No, I think that's in settings where I enable you to share, not share screen.
Allow. You can actually
got it. Done.
Okay.
Okay, great. It sure is. So so can everyone see this? It's small print.
Yes.
But we can either work from this, or we can work from your screen. So I'm curious, what would the group like to do?
I think it's too small for most of us to read.
That's what I was thinking. And if I make it bigger, then I can't get a page on. So I'll stop the share and see if each one of you has had a chance yet to bring the link up. And while you do that, I want to say hello to Haima. Hi, Haima.
Hello,
It's
Clarice.
a long time since I see you.
Great to see you.
I'm happy to see you here. Thank you for coming. And so, shall we go ahead and get started? Does everyone have the opportunity to have the materials in front of them, either printed? Okay, great. So let me share first, and I'm very excited to share this material with you, and I appreciate your willingness to get up early on a cold, at least in Atlanta, a cold, not wet morning, and to take a look at this material once more. It is, to my way of thinking, remarkable work. If someone asked me what were the 3 most important things to come out of the 20th century, I would say Marshall Rosenberg's work on nonviolent communication would be one of those 3 without hesitation. And it has certainly affected my life profoundly, and it is my hope that it will affect your life profoundly as well. This is an introductory workshop, so I want to be clear about that. And what we will do today, and then we meet again March the 17th, is introduce you to Marshall's basic ideas. We won't practice it per se, because this is really more about showing you how he thought about the language of compassion. Now, if some of you decide, oh, wow, I love this work, I want to find a group to practice in, I do offer practice groups, and we can talk about that later if that's something you'd like to do. For now, I just want to let you know that if you do love this work and you want to continue it beyond the introductory workshops, you can do that. That's possible for you. So before we start, I'm really curious to know what brings each one of you here. And in my screen on the upper left, I see the hybrid group, and I wondered if we might start with those in the hybrid group, maybe just going around the room, and then I will call on the rest of you as I see you on my screen, and just sharing what is it that you'd like to get from your time here today. I'm really curious to know. So we could start with Ashutosh.
Yes, please.
Oh, you don't have to come up to the screen. You can stay comfortably seated if you want, whatever is
No,
comfortable.
it's okay. Actually,
Okay.
we come every Sunday here, try to sitting at home watching this one, better to come here. That's why we come. Live
And
together.
what would you like to get from your time here this morning?
Very good. Very good. Good time.
You would like a good time? We'll see if we can have a good time for you. Thank you, Ashutosh. I appreciate that. How about Satwik? What brings you here this morning to this particular workshop?
I did come to attend this talk. So this is a completely new subject for me. I don't have any preconceived expectations. Hope to learn and hear. And I hope I should be able to use some part of it in my daily life.
Well, if you decide that that's what you want to do, you can. And in fact, you'll be starting to use it even today in time together. So thank you, Satwik. I appreciate that.
Thank you. Thanks for your time too.
Dolly, how about you?
He's not here.
She's not here.
She's not here now.
Okay. Let's see. Josh Kaur?
Shekhar. Okay.
Shaker.
Yeah, this is Shekhar.
Kaur, thank you.
I just came for today's context. Yeah, I do not have any expectation or something like that. I just want to absorb what you are saying and how I can imbibe in my personal life.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And Tom, how about you?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Perfectly.
Okay, I always come here on Sunday mornings. I don't know anything about this, but what I would hope to get out of it is to be a better communicator. Anything I can learn to give me better communication skills is great. And also, I'm really curious if this is one of the three most important things of the 20th century. What do you think the other two are?
Well, you want that answer now or privately?
Yeah.
All right, I'll tell you. 12-step programs and a book called A Course in Miracles.
And I would say 12-step programs and a change in women's rights.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you, Tom. And want to let you know this material absolutely will help you become a better communicator. It will deepen your connections with others. And so I'll be curious, Tom, to check in with you and see what your thoughts are once we have discussed this.
Okay.
Is there anyone else in the room that I have not yet called on before I move on to people on the screen?
Hi, Clarice. This is Haima.
Hi, Haima. Before we go, I just want to be sure that everyone in the building has had a chance to speak. Has everyone?
We got new people.
Hi,
Pardon me?
hi, this is Sundar here.
Hi, Sundar.
Yeah.
And so the question is, what would you like to get from your time today?
Yeah, I would just like to go with the flow and see like what is the best I can get. I don't have any preconceived idea, so I would just like to see how it goes.
Okay, great. Thank you. I appreciate your curiosity. And now I'm going to start from my screen and call
We've
out.
got one more,
One
Clarice.
more.
Oh, thank you, Elizabeth. Thank you.
Hi,
Two more. Sorry, did you get to say anything, Alex?
No.
Okay. Two more.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Niranjana. I just saw the topic from the newsletter, but I do not have a good idea about what's going to happen today, but I hope I'll learn a thing or two, and after the class, I'll be
Well,
able to.
I think it's very possible you might learn a thing or two. We'll see. We'll see how that is. And then there was one more person in the room. Who is that?
Alexandra, so nice to see you. This was a surprise to me as well. This is just part of my weekly practice on Sundays. But this is something that specifically I've been working on in therapy. I don't have a lot of role models for compassionate communication over the course of my life, and it's something that I'm very actively trying to learn. So I'm very pleasantly surprised.
Oh, I'll bet. Well, I'm very, very excited for you. This is the best language I know for extending compassion, and we'll see if you agree with that. So thank you. I appreciate that. And now, Uma, what brings you here?
I am very, very excited to be here because I'm exposed to the idea of compassion. I think since early 20s, not my 20s, 1920s. And I used to attend pharma meetings, faith, Metro Alliance of Faith or something. I don't know what it stands for, but Faith Alliance. And there, I forget the name, there was a gentleman who spoke on compassion.
So Uma, what would you like to get, maybe just in one sentence, what would you like to get from your time here today?
I would just like to promote compassion.
Okay, great. Thank you, Uma.
Basically.
Thank you, Uma. I so appreciate that. Brother Shankara, how about you? What would you like to get from your time here?
Anything at all that helps make one a better communicator, a better listener, a more generous listener, and a more compassionate speaker, so that both parties to the conversation are achieving what they want from the conversation and can acknowledge that the conversation is important to them. All of that, I hope, something will be said that adds to the knowledge of that.
It will over the course of the 2 workshops, it absolutely will. So thank you, I appreciate that. And I'm aware of our time, so maybe just a sentence or two of what you would like to get from this. So Piyush, am I saying that?
Yes, you're saying right. Thank you, Clarice, and thanks everyone. Nice to meet everyone. What I would like to get is how to be a good listener. And then next part would be how to identify my own feeling. I just end up going in silence. I cannot express it. So I have to find those compassionate words about instead of going silence in communication.
Well, I think you may be delighted, Piyush, to know that you will be given a list of feelings, so you won't have to wonder what they are. Go to the website or go to a dictionary. And I will say this, I really appreciate your bringing this into the room. The world is not kind to its men for encouraging them to state their feelings. Often the only feelings that men can have are anger. And as you will see, there are far more feelings than anger. So I really want to express how much I admire the men here, and to let you know you don't walk this alone. We walk this with you. All of us do. So thank you, Piyush. Sunil, how about you? What would you like to get?
Good morning. Yeah, I am a big follower of Buddha's compassion, philosophy. And I hope from this course, I can add on to that knowledge and use that practically in my life.
Oh, you absolutely will be able to if that's what you choose to do. Thank you. Shalesh? Would you be willing to unmute?
Thank you, Clarice, for being here and sharing your experience. Few things. I can see language of compassion. So language is one thing which we use for several things. And then there is compassion, which can be expressed without language, which we usually do. And so I would like to, see how that both of them come together. Though we use language of compassion, but how different this is. And also, like Brother Shankara said, becoming a good speaker and good listener, both becoming balanced, just being truthful. And third point I would like to say that when we look at spiritual virtues, how this language of compassion fits into that spiritual virtues, which are usually the Hinduism which we follow, the eight-fold path which we have. And so with all that, because that's what, as I go deeper into my spiritual practice, I feel that the yamas and niyamas which we practice, which is truthfulness and sense control, and so all that. So the compassion, how you can fit compassion into it.
Thank
So
you.
that's what I
And
would
you'll
like to do.
find that we can
Yeah.
do that. I don't think you'll
Thank
be
you.
disappointed at all. Thank you. Cindy, just in one sentence.
One sentence is hard. Just communication is everything for all of creation and all of consciousness. And I've always been fascinated by it, and I'm sure I'll get something out of this.
I think you will, Cindy. Thank you. Haima, how about you?
This is my refresher course, Clarice. I was there with you
Yes.
sometime in 2019 or 2020 or something like that. So I thought, well, I'd like to see you and then refresh my brain again. It works 100%. I will be like I almost like a muted, like a god in the temple. God is always muted, right? If he talks, then we won't go to the temple probably.
Thank you, Haima. Gita, how about you?
I started my first time at the Vedanta Center, the course, and I want to deepen my practice of compassionate language. So this way it'll just show me some different strengths that every time is unveiled for me.
Thank you, Gita. I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Let's see, Mikhail, am I saying your name?
Yeah,
right?
it's McKaylee. Thank you.
Oh, Mikhail.
I'm really looking forward to your course on compassion. And I've been myself a student of A Course in Miracles for over 30 years. And so I'm integrating Vedanta with A Course in Miracles. And it's very jnana yoga and bhakti, which comes more for the compassion and the heartfelt. So it's integrating the two together. Thanks. So I'm looking forward to your class today. Thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Bhagarath? Can you hear me, Bhagarath? If you're speaking, you are muted. So if you want to unmute, we can hear you. Okay, let's go to Gaurav. Gaurav?
Yes, I think I'm looking forward to knowing more how to communicate in a manner I won't be hurting anybody, but be firm.
Right. This will absolutely speak to that. Mhm.
Yep.
Let's see, Sunil?
I think I already shared.
Oh, did you? Okay, the screens are changing so quickly. Let's see, Triguna, did you share already? How about Bhagavan? Have you shared? Amy? Amy Moss? All right, and Stephen, we are curious to know what you would be interested in getting from the workshop today.
Oh, I apologize. I just connected, so if you don't mind, if I pass at this point. I mean,
Sure. Stephen, do you happen to have the workshop materials handy?
no, I don't.
If you look on chat, you will see a link that Cindy kindly sent to us. And if you click on that link, you can bring them up because we will be working, as you will see, very extensively from this.
Okay, all right, I'll do that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So with that said, everything that you said, wanting to become a better communicator, a better listener, how to communicate with compassion, all of that will be addressed. And before we do that, I wanted to share with you how I came to know about this work. I was years ago attending a church that found itself in conflict so intense that it literally polarized the congregation. And the minister and his staff did not know how to manage that conflict, so they brought in outside help. And I was really curious to see, well, what that outside help would have to say. And the facilitator of the workshop held up Marshall's book, Nonviolent Communication, and he said, read it and memorize it. And I had never heard an endorsement like that for a book before, so I was curious. I got the book, I read it, I loved it. And even though Marshall was a psychologist, he wrote the book in very ordinary, everyday language, so you're not having to wade through psychological jargon. And I thought, I love this book. I would love to meet this man. And surely enough, 2 years later, he came to Atlanta and offered a 5-day workshop that I attended 3 of those 5 days. And then he came back 2 years later and offered a 10-day international intensive training, and I attended all 10 of those. He was wonderful. He was a master at what he did. And I am sad to say he passed February 2015, and I miss him. But I love his work. So with that said, we'll just go right into his work. And in considering where to start, it occurred to me that it might be best to start with chapter 1 of his book, page 1, paragraph 1, which on page 1 of your materials, if you're looking at the screen, you will see a paragraph that begins with the words, believing that it is our nature. So who would be willing to read aloud for everyone else that paragraph that begins with the words, believing it is our nature?
I'll be happy to read.
Thank you, Haima.
Clarice,
Yes?
who is that, me or Haima?
Oh, Haima, I didn't, just so you know, Elizabeth, the image I have of your room is very dark, so I can't see if there are hands that are raised. It's like, I see the window, the white from the window, and then everything else is dark.
Yeah, I'm going to mute us and ask if they'd be willing to let me turn some lights on.
Oh, okay. All right, great. Haima, would you be willing to read that paragraph?
Sure, I can. Believing that it is our nature to enjoy giving and receiving in a compassionate manner, I have been preoccupied most of my life with 2 questions. What happens to disconnect us from our exploitatively? And conversely, what allows some people to stay connected to their compassionate nature under even the most trying circumstances?
Thank you, Haima. So it's interesting because Marshall really was genuinely curious. What is it that helps some people stay connected to the best of themselves, which he defined as compassion? And what was it that helped people disconnect from the best of themselves? And the answer from Marshall was language. He believed that language is crucial. The words I say to myself, the words I speak to you will determine if I stay connected to my compassion or disconnected. And interestingly, Marshall defined compassion as a flow between myself and others based on a mutual giving from the heart. So compassion is a flow between myself and others based on a mutual giving from the heart, which means I give because I want to give, not because I think I have to give. I am here today because I want to be here. I love this work and I'm excited to share it with you. It's not like, oh man, I got to get up and get dressed it's not like that. And you know, in my life, when there are things that I want to do, I have plenty of energy for doing them. If it means I'm going to be up half the night, I'm good with that. But if there are things I don't want to do, I'm a wonderful procrastinator. I can take 4 weeks to get to the thing. So it's important to look for the reason why someone does what they do. If they say yes to a request, is it because they want to do it or because they really don't want to do it? Because the energy that comes is going to make a big difference. So if language is important, what Marshall also observed is that many of us have been trained and educated and enculturated to speak a language of violence, or what he calls life alienating language. And he called it life alienating language because it alienates us from the best in ourselves. It alienates us and separates us from our compassion. So if I look at you and say, well, you're an idiot and a moron, I am not going to hold love in my heart if I'm speaking those words to you. And not only do I take love away from you, I take it away from me too. So if I'm going to make a judgment of someone, Marshall suggested that we work with that judgment by using 4 components of the language of compassion. But for now, I just want to note that life alienating language is what keeps us separated from the best in ourselves. And life alienating language, as Marshall saw it, were those words that led to hurt and pain. So someone can say life alienating words without yelling or screaming or cursing. Silence can be a kind of life alienating language. The rolling of the eyes can be a kind of life alienating language. So there are different ways, and unfortunately, you know, we have been trained and educated and enculturated to do this, and I say it in that way to give it the breadth and depth of just how much we have taken life alienating language as the only language there is. Many of us learned it from our families, then we saw it in schools, we may have seen it in churches, we may have seen it at work. So on so many different levels, we experience this life alienating language. At the same time, Marshall was very interested in our telling our truth. So the question becomes, well, how do I tell my truth in ways that don't wound others? So that's what we're going to be exploring a lot today. But before we do, I thought it might be fun, and granted, my idea of fun might be different from yours, but that we take a look at what life alienating language looks like and sounds like. So would you then be willing to click on page 2 of your workshop materials? And you will see at the top of that page the words, a life alienating dialogue. So I thought it might be fun if we can find a woman to speak the role of she and a man to speak the role of he. And if you've ever wanted to be an actor or an actress, this is your perfect time to do it. Bring in your inner actor and actress, have fun with this. So who would be willing to read the role of she?
She, yes.
Uma, okay. And before you go, Uma, we need a man. Who would be interested in reading the role of he? Gita has raised her hand. Was there anyone in the room?
I'll be he.
Okay, great, Tom. Gita, are you comfortable with Tom reading he? Okay, great. So Uma and Tom, bring it on. All right, Uma, would you be willing to start?
Yes. You never take me out to dinner.
What do you mean? I took you out to dinner last night.
That doesn't count. We always go there. There's nothing special about it.
What do you mean that's nothing special? I thought you enjoyed dinner out.
How can it be special when you do just all you do is talk about work, work, work?
Here we go again. It's always about work. You know, it's the money I make from work that pays for the dinners out.
Am I supposed to be grateful to you for that? Fred takes Alice to nice places, but you never, ever take me to nice places.
Too bad Fred married Alice, or you could have married him and he could take you out to nice places.
That's not fair.
So thank you. I think applause is needed here. Plus, I think clearly Oscar-worthy performances. So Uma and Tom, I thank you so much for what you brought to this dialogue. And it may be possible that some of you have heard echoes in this dialogue of dialogues that you have had. And if you do, just know that it's this kind of language, this kind of dialogue that keeps us separate and alienated from the best in ourselves. And it's interesting, isn't it? Because there's a lot that's spoken here, but little, very little that's actually said. So what do you see going on in this dialogue that makes it life alienating? What are the words or the phrases? What is it that you see so that we can be clear what life alienating dialogue looks like? I see a hand. Elizabeth, is that your hand?
Yes.
Okay.
You never.
Hang on one moment. Anything more, Elizabeth, that you wanted to say about that? What is it about that you never?
Well, just that those words, you never, you always, they're very just not truths. They can't be truths.
And they invite someone's defenses, don't they? Both the word you
That's
and
it.
the word never. And so they perceive attack and now they're ready to fight. Okay, great. Uma, I think you had a hand, and then Shalish will come to you. Uma, what do you see in this dialogue?
Yes, I think the elegatory tone, alleging that you never, that means that you put the other person on a very unfriendly way.
Yes, it starts off on a very tense note. Thank you, Uma. I appreciate that. And let's see, Shalish, you had a hand, and then Mikola, we'll come to you. Shalish?
I'm seeing that this is, can you reverse the roles for she and he here? Because women make money. Here we are assuming that the man has to take out a woman. Why cannot women take out men for dinner? And women talk all the time about work, and men are several times romantic, but women are sometimes, you know, I don't want to get into that, but I just feel that we need to pay attention to reversal of the roles going forward. Like, you know.
There are assumptions that are made here about each one, isn't it? And anything else, Shalish, that you noticed about the language itself, about the words that they speak to one another? Anything else that you would like to share, or are you complete? Okay, let's see. Mikola? I'm not sure I'm saying that right. Mikola?
Yeah, it's McKaylee.
McKaylee, okay.
Yeah, I see it as an attack defense, totally coming from the ego.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like a dance of death, but it's also the only way I would say to resolve it is that if the person can step back and look at it as a call for love.
Mm-hmm. Thank you. Any other comments?
I think
Oh, go ahead, Sunil, go ahead.
Yeah, I think it is more about being ungrateful of the good things and just focusing on the negative things rather than looking at the positive side.
Yes, there is a lot of negativity in here, isn't it? And it takes the form of criticism. There's a lot of criticism in here, isn't it? And blame and the implication of badness or wrongness. There's shame embedded in here. So they're using all that they have learned, these two, from their training and enculturation to work against them. And of course, these are the words that lead to hurt and pain for both of them, not just for one of them. And As a result, no one feels heard or satisfied. And worse, it creates enemy images. She begins to think of him as the enemy. He begins to think of her as the enemy. And so now we're just that much more removed from what is the best in ourselves. And so I wanted to share this kind of dialogue with you so that you can see what it looks like and what it sounds like, because there are ways of telling our truths without using this dialogue. And before we go there, I just want to say, if he does decide to take her to dinner, how much do you think he wants to take her to dinner? Yes, not very much, does he?
Not at
He
all.
might, yes, he might do it, but perhaps begrudgingly or resentfully.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
if they continue this kind of dialogue in their communication with one another, it's quite possible the relationship doesn't survive it. I read many years ago in a self-help book that in a relationship, and this is true not just in personal relationships, but even in business ones, that 10% of a relationship is love. 90, that's 90. 90% is communication. So many of us, myself included, know what it is to speak in anger, know what it is to put someone down, to criticize them, but this work invites us to speak a very different language. So with that said, would you be willing to turn to page 3? And we're going to take a look at the basic components of that language. And you will see at the top of page 3, the words 4 components of compassionate language. And what is remarkable to me is this elegant simplicity with which Marshall examined the ways people communicate and came up with just 4 ways for them to think when they're giving themselves communication to themselves or to others. So these 4 components are simply observe without evaluation, which means what is it that I'm hearing? What is it that I'm seeing? Second, share feelings. So what do I feel about what I have observed? The third is to state needs. So what are my needs connected to my feelings? And then the fourth is making a specific request. What is the behavior that I would request for meeting my needs? So you see how interconnected each one of these is. And this is not just a structure, it's also a process. So if I am angry at someone, what was it that I was observing? What are my feelings around that? What are my needs around that? And what is my specific request that I would make? So it's both a structure and a process. And I would speak in this way to someone else. And some people think, but that sounds so unnatural. And it's with sadness that I think that, because the way I see it, what is really unnatural is the life alienating dialogue we have been trained and educated and enculturated to speak. And what this dialogue does, this compassionate language, that to me is far more natural, because we are speaking not just to our heads, but to our hearts, as you will soon see. But so far, are there any questions about these 4 components? You will see that I am no artist. I attempted to draw icons just to help give you an idea of what it's like. And you will notice that the icon next to observe without evaluation has no mouth. That wasn't an accident. I did that deliberately because we keep our judgments to ourselves. Marshall isn't saying don't ever judge again. We will. We're human beings. That's what we're going to do. But I don't have to share that judgment. So keep my lips closed for the judgment and share only the observation, what it was that I saw or what it was that I heard. And then, as you will see, I share feelings. So that's coming from my heart, whether I feel joy or anger, all of that is coming from my heart. And that's difficult work for us because we don't always connect to our feelings. And in some families, it's not safe to feel feelings. You can't feel your anger. You can't feel your sadness. And Marshall's work says feel them, because feelings are not good or bad or right or wrong. They're just pieces of information. And then there are needs that we will have. That's the beauty of our feelings. They help me know if I'm connecting to my need and if my need is met. And then the last one, so, how can I get my need met? What would I ask of someone to help me get my need met? So we are going to take a deeper look into each one of these. And the first place we're going to look, interestingly enough, is needs. Because needs, to me, is the most pivotal piece of these four components. It is around needs that the other three revolve. And so I want to take some time to take a look at needs. So would you then be willing to turn to page 4? And you will see at the top of that page something called needs inventory. And you will see 3 columns of words, and all 3 columns of words are needs. And if you're like me and you want to count them, and assuming I counted them accurately, there are 84 needs on this page. 84 needs. And most of us do not speak our needs. So I want to define what needs means first. So the best definition I know actually comes from a colleague of Marshall, who said needs are those qualities that sustain a life I cherish, a life of well-being. And I'll say that again if you want to write this down. Needs are those qualities that sustain a life I cherish, a life of well-being. And even though these lists of needs on this page aren't exhaustive or definitive, they are universal. So that means no matter whether I live in North America, Asia, South America, the Arctic, everyone has these needs. And notice connection, acceptance, belonging, closeness, community, consistency, empathy, mutuality, safety, security. These are all needs we all have. Now, in this moment, they may well be met, because needs can either be met or not met. It's our feelings that will help us know this. We have needs for physical well-being, food, rest, shelter, touch, water. Additional needs, honesty, authenticity, presence, integrity, peace, ease, harmony, equality, order, meaning, challenge, consciousness, contribution, creativity, discovery, effectiveness, purpose, self-expression, to matter, understanding, autonomy, choice, independence, space. So every single word on these columns are needs. And yet, when I was in the 7th grade, my science teacher said to us, we have only 3 needs: food, air, shelter. Period. End of discussion. And that is misinformation. We have far more than those 3 needs. Yes, we have those 3, and we have far more than those 3. So part of the work in applying this language to our daily lives is to be curious, what is my need? And then to refer to this list of words so that you have the opportunity to become acquainted with the vocabulary of needs. Because many of us have confusion about what a need is and what it looks like and what it sounds like. And part of the work is to distinguish needs from feelings and from strategies. And a lot of times we kind of jumble them up. So it's important to be explicit, to say them out loud, to say, I need support. I need cooperation. And do you hear how clear that is? how precise that is, how it offers someone information about what's important to me in a given moment. But a lot of times we might say, I need you to go to the store. Did I state a need when I said, I need you to go to the store?
No.
No, I didn't. You do not see the words go to the store on this list, do you? So go to the store is a strategy, and that's what we do. We confuse needs and strategies. I need you to clean up your room. I need you to help out around the house. I need you to be more fun than you are. You see, none of those states a need explicitly. And so if I say, I need you to go to the store, I risk someone hearing that as a demand. And they may or may not want to. So if I can be clear what my need is, be clear with myself first, so I can have the specificity, and then share it with someone else so they have the specificity, then I'm well on my way to getting my need met. But first, it has to begin with identifying what my need is. I had years ago a dear friend whose husband traveled a great deal. And one night she gave him a call and she said, I need you to come home. Did she name a need?
No.
No. Come home isn't on the list, is it? So what is her strategy suggesting her need is? If she's saying, I need you to come home, what would you guess the need is connected to her strategy? And again, we can only guess. We can never know what someone else's need is. We can only guess, but we can always know what our need is. So who would like to guess? What was her need as you look at the needs list? What do you think her need was when she asked him to come home? Uma.
Loneliness.
So that would be her feeling, Uma. Right now we're talking about needs. So what would her need be? And Uma, that's on page 4, the needs. And while you think about that, does anyone else have a suggestion about what the needs would be?
Closeness, to be close.
Could be, yes. It could very well be closeness, yes. Gita, you had a hand?
Support.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
Support.
Or yes, you could very well have a need for support. So do you see how it would make a difference to say, I need closeness or I need support rather than I need you to go home? Do you hear the difference in that? And I can't tell, I don't see anyone moving their heads. So the thing of it is, it's scary to say our needs because we have thoughts and ideas about needs that I'm weak if I say my need. And I want to share with you in this moment, it takes enormous strength and courage to share our needs. And here's the interesting thing. We confuse need with neediness. So I want to talk about those two and make a very important distinction between them. Neediness is about my not getting my needs met. Neediness is about making you responsible for my needs. Need, however, is very different. Need is my taking responsibility for my needs. Because if I can say I need support or I need presence or I need consideration, then I'm showing up, aren't I? And I'm showing up very clearly in a way that isn't making someone wrong. So a way to think about it, and this is the best analogy I know in the moment, need is to needy as seed is to seedy. They have very similar words, but very different meanings. It is okay to say out loud, to express explicitly what a need is. Because we're being direct, we're being open, we're being honest, we're being in integrity, and we're being vulnerable. And when we are vulnerable, it helps people's hearts to open to us. So if she had said to her husband, I need closeness, that would be a different experience for him to hear than, I need you to come home. So are there any questions about this material so far? Okay. Well, then let's go on to feelings.
Hi, Clarice.
Oh, yes, Shalish. Yes.
My observation is that sometimes communication can be a problem. Sometimes if you do not say few things, it's sometimes easier. I feel that. That's my observation, is that if you do not talk, otherwise you just go on. There can be more confusion, more misunderstanding. Sometimes it's better not to say a few things and just, that's how I see it. Not always, but sometimes.
And I appreciate that, Shalish. And if I'm in a place of anger, it might very well be that I wait to speak until I'm clear what my feelings are and what my needs are, and I've connected to them. And to be clear that I'm not trying to manipulate someone, because if anyone used this work to manipulate someone, this work will not work. But if I show up genuine and sincere and say, I have a need for connection, then what do I risk other than showing up vulnerably and attempting to get my needs met? And here's the interesting thing. There are far more strategies for meeting needs than there are needs. So let's take the case of this friend who said, I need you to come home. And let's say, in fact, she had a need for closeness. Let's work with that. So the question becomes, well, what are the many strategies that they can explore to create closeness? Because if he is unable to come home, and as it turned out, he wasn't, he can't leave his work, then maybe they can text more throughout the day. Maybe they can call more throughout the day. You see, maybe they write each other quick little notes. I love you. I miss you. I'm thinking of you. So you see, there are a lot of different strategies for meeting a need for closeness. It isn't just one strategy for meeting one need. There are many strategies for meeting one need. And Shalish, if you and I were in conversation expressing our needs, then what we would do is explore what strategies work for both of us. Because Marshall believed that this work is about contributing to the well-being of everyone. Everyone, not just one or two or some or many, but all. And if every single one of us were gathered together in a big room around a big table, we would go around and share our needs and be curious. How do we meet the needs of everyone? And that's where we would put our attention, not in, you're an idiot and a moron, leave the room. We wouldn't go there. We would be genuinely curious. Wow, so he has a need for connection, and I have a need for celebration of life. How do we do that? Let's see what that looks like for each of us and talk about it. And in my own conversations with my partner, when I do that, I might have a strategy in mind. He might have a strategy in mind, but when we express our needs first, interestingly enough, when we hear each other's needs, another strategy often arises that is far better than the one I had. It just kind of arose organically from the clear expression of what I needed. And that's really remarkable. So I don't have to strain myself trying to think of an answer. And that's what so many of us have been trained and educated and enculturated to do. I've got to come up with something. I don't have to come up with anything. All I have to do, and this is only because it contributes to the well-being of all, is to share my feelings and my needs. And when I do that, then I'm opening hearts. And Uma, I see you have a hand.
Yes, please. I have a question.
Yes.
What if the needs of one does not match with the needs of the other?
I so appreciate your bringing that question in, because Marshall believed, interestingly enough, that needs never conflict. So let's say I'm feeling tired and I have a need for rest. and my partner is excited and he has a need for play. Then we would bring that to the table and we would talk about it. And perhaps the strategies would be, I take a 20-minute power nap, I get my need for rest made, and then I'm ready to play. So you see, there's no conflict in needs. There can be conflict in strategies, but never in needs. So isn't that interesting? I mean, needs is such a safe way to express what is genuinely alive in us. So thank you. Any more questions on needs before we move to feelings?
I have something to say. I'm trying to wrap my head around all of this a little bit.
Okay.
Especially if you're like pursuing spiritual upliftment. I think these are pretty much a lot on the surface, on the top. If you're thinking about chitta, which is basically your mind. If your mind is agitated, you can have the depth. You cannot see clarity. You can't have clarity. You can't see the bottom. So this movement of, okay, I'm not understanding my partner, even if he or she is tired, I want my needs met. Those are very superficial to me. I almost feel that if you are a partner, you gotta be deeper. And the deeper you get, the lesser the turbulence. You understand the opposite better. And so, yeah, it's just my 2 cents.
Well, thank you, Garb. I appreciate your bringing that into the room and want to share that when I speak from needs and feelings, I see it a little bit differently. I see I am speaking from depth. And to the extent that I share them with another, then they begin to see what is alive in me, just as I get to see what is alive in them. And that's how connections and relationships deepen over time. The clarity that we offer one another, how we feel, and what we need. Is that helpful to you, Gaurav?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Thank you. I will share something else. We're about to move into feelings. Scientific research has proven, so this is fascinating. They've done scientific research on this. Scientific research has proven that when I say my feelings out loud, especially if I'm upset, I begin the process of soothing my mind. The mere act of saying, I feel angry, I feel frustrated, I feel upset, begins to soothe feelings in my mind. And then the energy begins to decrease around the amount of anger I had felt before I said it and after I said it. So with that said, shall we be curious about feelings? Is the group willing to take a look? All right. Would you then be willing to turn to page 5? And you're going to see at the top of that page, feelings inventory. And you will see highlighted in that feelings when your needs are satisfied. So you might want to draw a circle. You can't draw a circle, but if you ever decide to make a printout of this, draw a circle about it, because we have 2 groups of feelings, interestingly enough. And the group we're going to look at now are those feelings when our needs are satisfied, when our needs are met. And every single word that you see in these 3 columns are feelings. And yet often, if I ask, well, how are you? How are you feeling? You know what I'll hear? Good. Okay. Like, what is that? I mean, clearly it's more of a positive experience than it is a not positive experience, but it doesn't say very much. It's almost as if someone's holding up their hand and saying, you cannot come any further into this experience. So if someone said instead, well, I feel delighted, I feel joy. I have a dear friend who loves tickled. She'll say that every chance she has when she feels it. I feel tickled. And by the way, when was the last time you heard someone say, I feel rapturous?
Feel what?
Rapturous. rapturous, rapturous, from the word rapture. We don't say that. You know, we just keep it to okay, good. And if we're especially excited, awesome. We might say awesome, but look, we don't say I feel compassionate or open-hearted or tender or warm or empowered or safe or engaged or enchanted or spellbound or inspired or amazed or invigorated or exhilarated or thrilled or grateful or hopeful or joyful or pleased or peaceful or relaxed, serene. We don't say these, and so we keep ourselves in a real narrow band, good or okay, when we could just have all these feelings, and we do have them, whether we are aware of them or not. We have feelings, and in fact, there was a study done that noted we have 40, that's 40,000 feelings in a given day. How many of those feelings are we ever aware of? You know, and the thing of it is, if I wake up feeling grumpy, it doesn't mean I'm going to stay grumpy all day long. 5 minutes later, I might feel tickled because I've got my favorite cereal waiting for me for breakfast, you see? And then 5 minutes later, I might feel frustrated, or I might feel sad because now my breakfast is eaten. Do you see? So we have a plethora of feelings, but it's important for us to be aware of them. Now, I'm not saying you have to be aware of all 40,000 feelings in a given day, but it is very helpful. And if you want to take a moment to stop and say to yourself, what are you feeling in this moment? Then you would be giving yourselves the opportunity to practice this. Now, if you don't find any words on this list, there'll be another list that we can take a look at.
Could I make a quick comment about the feelings?
Please do.
And when people say, how are you? And we say, good. Just that, and maybe that we'll be getting to this or in later workshops. There's a difference between saying good or good and really good. You know, so there's also the
yes, the intonation
part.
But
Yes.
Cindy, what does really good tell you? How close do you feel connected to that person who says, oh, I feel really good?
Well, it depends on how they say it and how well I know them. And if they're looking at me, if they really look at me and say, I'm feeling really good today. Because if I know that person, maybe they felt really awful the past month. And I'm like, I'm so glad you feel really good. Because really good in that moment is awesome, is happy, joyful, rapturous. But I hear
So
what
why
you're saying.
didn't they say I feel happy? If someone says I feel happy, then they're more connected to a specific feeling, because that's the beauty of these lists. They're so specific. To say I feel really good, well, is that happiness? Is it joy? Is it peace? Is it calm? I don't know, because I'm not telling you. I'm not going deep into that. So to be able to say I feel really good doesn't have for me the same effect as I feel happy or exhilarated.
Sure, and it comes down to being more creative with ourselves. I had an English professor who used to say, well, help me see what you see. So if you said, I feel really good, he would say, help me see what you see. And it's about really stopping and going, well, what do I mean? What do I mean when I say this? Which is what I think you're saying.
Exactly. And the word for what you're describing is specific. Help me see what you're seeing is the same thing as saying be specific. And the beauty of these lists is that we have the feelings right here, literally in black and white on a single page. It's not like I got to run to the website to figure out what it is, or go to the dictionary or try to figure it out, or call a friend. Right here. And just as you said, Cindy, all we have to do is just to take time and go down the list. How am I feeling? And we're not accustomed to doing that. Often people will say, oh, well, you know, I feel like that was a good idea. So this is a trick question. did I name a feeling when I said, I feel like that's a good idea? You see how tricky we are. I see Gaurav will be in just a moment, but you see how tricky it is when we say words, I feel, but did we actually name a feeling, or did we name an idea and misplace that idea? Or I feel that you were unfair. Did I name a feeling?
Nope.
Again, I was tricky. I said, I feel, but I didn't name. So it's really important when someone says, I feel, my ears perk up and I'm like, okay, what's coming next? Are they going to really name a feeling, or are they going to name an opinion or an interpretation or a judgment? Because interestingly, if someone says, I feel that's unfair, they're going to have feelings about it, but they haven't yet connected to them. And we'll get to that in just a moment because there's another set. Garub had a hand, and then Haima will come to you. Garub?
Yes. How can I communicate that I'm content? I'm not happy. I'm not sad. I'm in between the two. I always want to feel content. I'm not chasing after the positive high or the negative low. I'm just in middle. I'm content.
So Gaurav, I would say to you, you did beautiful rock right then, and our work here is done because you named your feelings. You said, I feel content. It is as simple and as easy as that, right? So you did beautiful work. That's exactly what this work is about. So thank you. I really appreciate your bringing that in. And the interesting thing, Gaurav, about your naming you feel content is that that indicates in that moment your needs are met. Does that make sense to the group? If I feel happy, if I feel content, if I feel amused, if I feel compassion, then my needs are met in the moment. And that's why feelings are so helpful.
Almost feel
Help
like
me determine if my needs are being met.
if
Gaurav,
I'm
have a comment you wanted to make?
if I'm content, then I'm at peace and that's about it.
Yes. And if you're at peace and you're comfortable, your needs are met.
That's
Now,
it.
Rube, if I took my car and drove it through your kitchen, you might have a very different feeling.
Oh, I'm working on not having a negative feeling towards it. I
So
believe
I want to thank you so
that's
much,
one of my
Rob, for
beliefs.
bringing that in, because there is in Marshall's eyes no such thing as a negative feeling or a positive feeling or a good feeling or a bad feeling.
This is what
Feelings are
still
nothing more than
right.
pieces of information. So if I'm happy in the moment, my needs are met. That's the value of that information.
This
If
is
I'm
what
up, hang on, Gaurav, would you be willing to let me complete my thought?
Yeah.
Thank you
Yes.
so much. I appreciate that. So if I'm feeling upset or if I'm feeling unsettled, that's a piece of information letting me know I have an unmet need. And then I get curious. So what is the need? And we'll get to that page in just a moment. Gaurav, was there more before we go to Haima? Because Haima had, hang on one moment, Haima.
Yes.
Gaurav wants to say something.
Just a little piece. I feel that everything that I own nothing at the end of the day. It's all owned by divine anyways. I'm just a custodian of whatever is being blessed on me. And if that is what happens, if somebody drives a car to my garage, well, it's her wish. That's how it's supposed to be. And I'll just work with it. I've been given a pretty good hand. I'm okay.
Okay, well, thank you, Gaurav. I appreciate that. And yes, on one level, I agree. I cannot be harmed if I see myself as connected to God, if I see myself as a child of God. But in my Clariceness and in the body that I call Clarice, I am going to have feelings and needs. My addressing those, as I see it, doesn't go against God. In fact, it brings me closer to God, because as I get curious, wow, I feel outrage in the moment. What is that about? What is my need connected to the outrage? Then I began to shift. And the more and more I do that, then my content is genuine, full content.
So the feelings are connected to this body. Feeling happy, feeling sad, emotion, it's with the body.
and how I
With the
think as well, and
If
how
I,
I think
if,
as well. Rob.
yes, but if I can attach myself through my life circumstances and everything, I figured if I can attach myself to the divine and always invoke the divine name incessantly, she gives me that power that it's okay.
So you've got a wonderful strategy, Rob, staying connected to the divine for meeting your need for peace.
Exactly.
And I'm happy that you have that.
Thank you,
Rob. Haima?
Oh, Clarice, I was looking for the word content in the list. I couldn't find it, and I'm glad he mentioned that.
Okay. Does anyone see the word content on the list, Gita?
Yes.
Maybe it's
on the right-hand side under peaceful.
Oh, centered content. Yes, I do see it now. Okay. Also, I have one comment, what Cindy said. I am very happy to, I'm feeling very good today. And if it...
Haima, wait. So did you hear what Haima just said? I'm feeling very good today. Haima, would you be willing to use a different word than good? Would you be willing to take a look at the feelings on page 5 and name what you're feeling?
I'm talking about what Cindy mentioned, feeling...
Right, but you said you feel very good. And I just want to, I so appreciate your bringing this into the room to show how we come up by saying, I feel good or very good. What specifically do you feel, Haima? Would you be willing to take a moment and see what you feel?
Yes, what I'm saying is if someone says, I'm feeling very good today, and then follows with a statement of, this is what happened, that's why I'm feeling very good, then it's okay.
Haima, at what point did they ever name their feeling? If they're just going to go into an explanation of why they're feeling really good, they never connected to their feeling.
But if
so they're not deepening their connection to themselves. Do you see?
Probably,
If someone feels really good, maybe they feel exhilarated. Then they're connecting to themselves. But to say, I feel really good, that's so vague. And this work is about being precise and specific.
In a theoretical way, yes, you are correct. But in a colloquial way, it's usually people say, I'm feeling really good. And then they will say, oh, my granddaughter came today. Or
right. And you see, at no point did they ever name their feeling. And here's the thing. We can continue to say really good if that's what you want to do, but you're not deepening your connection to yourself. You're not expanding the feelings vocabulary or the needs vocabulary. You're just doing what you've always been doing. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's what people want to do. But I see Uma has a hand, and I'm aware we're running out of time. So Haima, would you be willing for us to
Very quick question.
Yes.
Quick question. If somebody says, I'm on the top of the world, I'm happy, then naturally the other person, if you're close to that person, will ask, may I know why are you happy? I would like to share with you.
Well, they said happy, so you said they did name a feeling.
Yeah.
So that's what this work is about. It would not just be saying I'm on top of the world, period, end of discussion. If they say I feel happy, then they named a feeling, didn't they?
Right, but can you ask, why are you?
Well, if you're interested, sure. But you see, the beauty of it is that they named their feeling, and then that brings you deeper into their experience of happiness. Gita.
And good and bad is only like a judgment. It's not what is good for you might not be good for the other person.
I can't hear you. Okay.
Thank you.
Clarice,
Yes.
we have someone here.
Okay.
Hi.
Hi.
I am feeling stimulated and very interested in this subject.
Oh, I love hearing that. Thank you so much. I'm feeling delighted that you named your feelings.
You touched on the, cultural desensitization we have to our own feelings, because I do talk like that. And I have been criticized repeatedly for sounding strange and oversharing. And I think when sometimes you do speak differently, you have to accept the mantle of, yes, I am making a cultural change by deciding to speak this way. And it's not always appropriate. I think there's a level of discernment that needs to be had. one quick question I wanted to ask. You don't have time to touch on it, that's okay, but I just wanted to put it out there. You said that the teacher of this philosophy believed that needs can never be in conflict. And you know, if I have a need for safety and somebody else has a need for communication, like, so in psychology, we learn about Maslow's hierarchy of needs, that like safety and, you know, and water and things do have priority over, you know, other needs. So how does that, you know, kind of fit into this philosophy? Like, if you're dealing with somebody who has mutual compassion with you, obviously your needs will not be in conflict, but that's not always necessarily the case.
Well, what would be interesting, and I really appreciate your bringing this in. So if I have a need for safety and you have a need for communication, then what does that look like? Does safety mean I'm going to go into my room and stay there for 30 minutes? And what does communication mean? Do I want to know how you feel? Do I want to know how you need? So to the extent that we are able to explore these needs and to explore strategies, then I don't see there being competition or conflict between safety and communication. And I will say, I do understand what you're saying. Maslow did create a hierarchy. Just to let you know, Marshall Rosenberg did not. All needs are equally important. So there isn't a need more important than the other.
I guess, like, if someone is coming to me with an attack mindset, if somebody is not communicating with compassion, then it's important that I protect myself and meet that need first. I think that's just,
and that's okay, you know. And then what you can do, and we may not, well, we may not get that far today, but you know, Marshall believed, and this is important to keep in mind, even if you want to write it down, he believed that all behavior is in the service of needs. All behavior. Someone hitting, someone screaming, someone cursing is attempting to get a need met. And Marshall would suggest that the strategies of hitting or screaming or cursing are tragic expressions of unmet needs, because they make it so difficult, if not impossible, to see the need. So the question is someone, quote unquote, is screaming and yelling, they are attempting to meet the need, and they obviously have strong feelings. So then I would guess, well, what is their need? Do they have a need for safety? Do they have a need to be heard? Do they have a need to be seen? You see what I'm saying? Now, if at the moment you feel terror and you have a need for safety, and if your strategy for safety is to remove yourself from that place, then you can do that, certainly. And then perhaps as you begin to connect to your feeling of terror and get your need for safety met, then you will perhaps find yourself feeling calmer, and then maybe curious. Gee, what was that about? What was that person's need? Marshall worked with prisoners, you know, men who raped women. I mean, it was tough work he did. He also worked in the Middle East as a mediator, and he identified all behaviors as needs. Men who rape, people who go to war are attempting to meet needs, but the strategies for those needs do not contribute to the well-being of all. And that's one of the undercurrents of this work. What is it that contributes to the well-being of all? And imagine in this world, if we were to hold the idea of contributing to the well-being of everyone, then that might well help inform how we choose to hear one another and the needs and strategies. But what we tend to do is go straight to strategies. You know, what am I going to do without ever considering the need first? And that's a lot like putting the cart in front of the horse. And it's hard for a horse to have to move the cart, isn't it? It's much easier to put the cart behind the horse. And
so maybe
Michaela, I see you have a hand, but I want to continue this. Yes, go ahead.
Maybe a way to think about it is to say, if somebody is communicating in a way that's harmful to me, it would hurt them to allow them to continue doing that.
Well, it hurts them because you see, they're not connected to their feelings or their needs
Right.
in this context.
Thank you.
People who are angry, who yell and shout, interestingly enough, are not connected to their anger. Everyone else in the room can see that they're angry, but they aren't, because when we connect to our anger, it's a moment to quiet, not loud. And Michaeli, I see you have a hand, and then someone named iPhone has a hand, but
Clarice, this is Swayam.
Hi, Swayam. Before we go to you, we'll go to Michaeli first because I saw her hand first.
Okay, sure.
Thank you, Michaeli.
Oh, Clarice, I just want to thank you so much. What you just said has really helped me. You said listening, what is that person's needs, and that all behaviors are needs. So now, from now on, I'm choosing that anytime, I'm really choosing, because of what you said, to be a really good listener. So anytime I have interaction with anybody, I'm going to listen and ask, go inward, and I'm going to ask myself, what are that person's needs because of their behavior? So thank you. Just you saying that has helped me so much.
Thank you. Thank you, Michaeli, and I appreciate that. And yes, Marshall very much believed all behavior is in the service of needs. And we can't know really what someone else's need is, but we can guess it. And we don't have to be accurate, but we can guess it. And that piece is called empathy, and we'll get to that when we meet in March. So, Swayam, you have a hand.
Yes, having attended this workshop before and being part of the practice work group, I cannot but help appreciate how precious this method of communication is. The more you are in it, it's difficult, as we all see in the practice sessions, but the more you contemplate on it, the more you realize what a treasure it is to be able to communicate this way. And being that this is part of a spiritual, talk, in a way, connecting to the feelings helps us get over the ego sense. We are all trying to get to that I is not the body and mind, but being so attached to the feelings makes it hard, more we get attached to the ego. By practicing this, perhaps it will help in our spiritual growth as well, because then we are identifying something with a feeling and a need, and not to the, to a higher, hopefully get to a higher self, if that makes sense.
Thank you, Swayam. And I appreciate you bringing that in. And another way of looking at it is when I name my feelings and needs, I'm also releasing them. I'm beginning to release them. It's when I don't name them that I'm stuck with them and don't even know what it is I'm feeling. And I'm aware we have 3 minutes left. And so let's see, would the group be willing to turn to page 6? And you will see another list. Interestingly, these are feelings as well. And these are feelings we feel when our needs are not met, when our needs are not satisfied. And look at some of them, afraid, panicked, terrified, worried, annoyed, exasperated, frustrated, angry, and so forth and so on. And so these are not bad feelings. These are not wrong feelings. They are feelings that indicate unmet needs. And that's why, as feelings, they're important, because they help me determine in any given moment, am I getting my needs met or not? If I'm happy, then my needs are probably met. If I feel anguished, then I have an unmet need. And the question becomes, what is the need? What is my need? What is my need? And then I go to page 4 and see, what is my need? So if you decide that you want to come in March, I would invite you to make printed copies of these materials so you have them at hand. We will continue to do some work around feelings, but my hope for those of you genuinely interested in this work is that between now and when we meet on March the 17th, that you ask yourselves maybe once a day, every day, what am I feeling and what do I need? And you can do that anytime you want. When you wake up, right before lunch, in the afternoon, at night, just before you go to bed, just to give yourselves the opportunity of connecting to your feelings and needs and to become acquainted to them. And then you might even decide to be curious, gee, what is someone else feeling and what does someone else need? Because if that couple in the dialogue had done the same thing, they might both have realized, she might have realized she felt hurt because she had a need to be seen, and he might feel he felt hurt because he had a need to be appreciated. And imagine if they had shared that with each other, rather than say, you never take me to dinner. She said, I feel hurt. I have a need for closeness. And he said, I feel hurt. I have a need for appreciation. Imagine that conversation. So I thank each one of you so much for your willingness to spend time. This is a very different way of thinking about things, and it does seem at first unnatural. And I feel sad saying that, because that just says how much I have been trained and educated and enculturated to speak a language that keeps me separate from my compassion rather than connected. But the good news is our brains aren't hardwired. We can change. We can replace one thought system with another one. So thank you all so much. Take care. Have a
Thank
great
you.
rest of the day.
Thank you so much, Clarice.
Thank you,
Thank
Elizabeth.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you, Clarice.
Wonderful.
Next.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You. Closing prayer, or we're done?
May we be safe. May we be healthy. May we be cheerful. May we have peace of mind. And may we go forward knowing that that mother, father being that is introduced to us in the opening prayer holds us in a loving and protective embrace. May we all be well and in bright spirits until next time, which would be Tuesday night. Thank you all for coming.
Thank you.
Enjoy.
Thank you.
Bye-bye, dears.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.